Hello and welcome to another episode of A Conversation with Carl. Please remember to like, follow, and subscribe for the latest content. Today I'm very excited to continue uncovering the mysteries of our universe with Christian Stepien, an American technology entrepreneur and engineer best known as Chief Technology Officer of the National UFO Reporting Center, a nonprofit organization that collects and archives reports of unidentified aerial phenomena. Please welcome Christian Stepien to the conversation.
Hello, everyone. Glad to be here.
Thank you so much for joining me today. So for those
Sure.
unfamiliar, can you explain what a UAP and a UFO are and what the difference between them is?
UAP is just the modern day term for UFO. I think most people hopefully know what UFOs are: unidentified flying objects, flying saucers, things in the sky that we don't know what they are. Basically, the name describes itself. So that unidentified flying object is something up in the sky flying around that nobody knows what it is. It's actually unidentified anomalous phenomenon is the term these days. And that's actually a much wider term. So it could be anything. It could be something under the ocean. It basically describes anything that we don't know what it is.
So how long has the UFO Reporting Center been in existence? And since its founding, how many sightings have you recorded?
So we've been in existence for 52 years. It was actually founded in 1904 by ex-Seattle firefighter named Bob Gribble. Basically just ran a one-man show for about 20 years where he basically circulated the number to all of the different law enforcement agencies, air traffic control centers, Air Force bases, things like that, and basically got himself known as the place to report UFOs. And sure enough, reports started flying into the center. There's some really dramatic audio out on our website of some of the calls that came in, because in those days there was no internet, so everything came in by phone calls or by snail mail. And Bob ran it for 20 years, and then basically in 1994, Peter Davenport took over as director, and I joined him as CTO to basically build a database and get all of this information into a computer and out onto the web. So in that time, the reports that we've collected are really the reports that have been collected in the last 30 years when we started building the database. And in that time, we've got over 200,000 or almost 200,000 reports in the database. About 150,000 of those we've put out onto the web that we consider are worthy of people taking a look at.
So what are you looking for?
The first thing we look for is, can we, easily identify what it was? Was it a balloon? Was it an airplane? Was it, Starlink satellites are being famously identified, looked at by people and not knowing what they're seeing, and they call in those reports. So that's kind of the first pass. And then we also look at, is it something truly dramatic and truly anomalous, meaning, if what they're describing is even close to being accurate, is it anything that human technology could have produced? And we have a section of our website that's called the Tier 1 reports, that are those reports that we feel are things that certainly have no terrestrial explanation. And the explanation tends to lean towards some sort of a non-human intelligence. So about somewhere between 5 and 10% of our reports go into that category.
And when you're looking at it, I mean, the aliens, if they're coming here or whatever these objects are, I mean, they could look like a plane too, could they not?
They could disguise themselves if they wanted. If they're doing a good job of disguising themselves as a plane, then we're probably not going to get the report. People will say that's just an airplane. But there are a lot of them that, you have all the classic flying saucer reports from the 40s and 50s and 60s, and we still occasionally get those. And, those are the ones that just defy explanation. They stand out as something that, certainly there's some kind of a technological object out there that's moving around and flying around that is well beyond the capabilities of anything that we have to produce.
Are you working with official government agencies and law enforcement when you first get a report? Or do people come to you first? How does this work?
People come to us first. We do collaborate with for instance, we collaborate with AARO, the government's organization that's in charge with getting to the bottom of UFOs right now. We do get reports. We tend to get reports from law enforcement and air traffic control rather than us sending them reports. So most of the time, the reports come to us first. We process them. A certain amount of them, we actually have investigators that will go out, talk to the people and try and, get to the bottom of what it was. If they can't explain it, file it away as something truly anomalous. And occasionally we'll collaborate with law enforcement to try and make some phone calls to see was anything else reported in the area, or do they have any knowledge about what this thing might have been? And sometimes they do. Most of the time they don't.
Who are the types of people that are making the calls, and how do you decide that the person that you're getting a phone call from is someone you taking serious, or someone who just, was on an LSD trip outside and they thought they
We
saw that?
get
And
some
like,
of
how do you
those.
differentiate?
Yeah, I would say the vast majority are sincere reports of people are people who see these types of things tend to have these existential experiences where they, it shatters their worldview. Imagine yourself going out, at night to take the dog out or whatever it is, looking up and seeing a huge triangle hovering over your house that's completely silent. It's making no noise at all. It's just hovering there with no aerodynamic surfaces, no explanation of why or how it could be there. And then in the blink of an eye, it's off at the horizon. It's
Yeah.
something that basically shatters your idea of what reality could be. And we get reports from everybody. It's a complete cross section of the population that files UFO reports.
So,
So
how many
how
reports
many?
do you get a day?
It ranges from 20, 30, and then if there's a big dramatic wave going on, like with the New Jersey drone wave that happened a
Yeah.
little over a year ago, then we shot up to over 100 reports a day in that period.
Is there a specific area that they're coming from more so? You just mentioned New Jersey, but are
Sure.
there more like, is there other areas?
No, it's really homogeneously widespread over, we feel, the entire planet. I mean, we get reports from all over the world. Most of our reports, of course, come from the US because that's where more people know about us and we're more in people's minds as to where to report UFOs. But, we've had reports from Antarctica, every continent, every ocean, everywhere.
So, what do you do with this information once you get it?
So our main function is to basically collect this information and put it out there for people to read and look at. So, that is our number one mission statement, is to keep the website up and running, so people have a place to go to see what's going on. Well, if you want to see where the latest UFO reports are and basically, know what is the latest, most recent sightings, we're really the only place on the internet right now that you can go to that has a reliable, steady stream of that information coming out. I mean, there's other groups like MUFON that collect things, but they're kind of behind paywalls, and they, they do a fantastic job, but you have to be a member and, pay a membership fee to be able to see their data. Whereas we put everything out there for free.
Do you believe they're aliens here, or are they just sending like ships, like we send the Mars rover to Mars? Do you think they're sending things here for to look at us?
I personally believe they are actually here.
Okay.
And I think they're probably also sending probes. I mean, I don't discount that for a second, that there's some sort of automated or autonomous vehicles. And then you get into all kinds of strange things like, there's this whole phenomenon of orbs out there right now. And these are big plasma balls of light that people see all the time, and they maneuver intelligently. They can basically come close to people, look like they're examining what they're doing, and then disappear off to the horizon. So, yeah, there's certainly an intelligence that's here, and there's certainly beings that are here. If you get into the whole abduction, alien abduction side of things, and some of the experiences people have had firsthand contact with some of these things, that's where you get into really more of the entity type of stories in
Are
that aspect.
most people's stories similar? Like, are they all seeing the same person, or is it kind of different? And are these people far away from each other that there's no way they would have been able to connect to each other?
Think any of these people connect to each other. What they report is very, there are certain things that get reported over and over and over again. Like I mentioned, the triangles, I mentioned the orbs, and then there's all kinds of weird one off stuff that people report. We also get a lot of reports of not so dramatic, but still interesting phenomenon. Like people will see something that looks like a satellite. This is really commonly reported, and then all of a sudden it'll take a right turn. Something
Yeah.
that satellites don't do, obviously. So what are those? We don't know.
Do you think any of this could be explained like a military aircraft, or you're like,
Yeah.
no, we're not there?
No, I think some of it can be, certainly, but not all of it. Not all of it. There's some where we're just not there. It's just, these and again, it's not just people seeing these things. These things show up on radar. I
Yeah.
don't know if you're familiar with the famous case out off San Diego back in 2004 with the Nimitz, when they were rolling out a new radar system and they were picking up these objects that were basically descending from 80,000 feet down to 10,000 feet in a split second, something that we just don't have anything that can do that. And then they were making instantaneous right angle turns that, if a human pilot was in a craft like that, they'd be turned into jello by the G forces that they'd be experiencing. So these things are picked up, with sensors and radar, as well as people seeing them with their own eyes.
And it couldn't be a military exercise like we're learning about
Well,
flying
this was,
plane.
I mean, I
Yeah.
personally talked to some of the radar operators that were out there, and no, I mean, they were like, this is not us.
Yeah.
I mean, David Fravor, some of our top gun pilots have been on. They testified to Congress that there's no way some of the things that they're seeing are human technology or some sort of secret government program.
So, like commercial airlines, are these pilots reporting like seeing stuff around them?
Yeah, pilots report things and have reported things. There's always unfortunately been a stigma with reporting UFOs. So I think a lot of what pilots have seen, especially commercial pilots over the years, has not been reported because in the past you could lose your license for reporting a UFO and then everybody would think you're crazy and you're not fit to drive an airplane, which is
Yeah.
a really unfortunate side effect of all the stigma that was put around this subject for 70 years.
And I'm not trying to push back. I'm just trying to
Yeah.
like a lot of the questions I ask are
Sure.
stuff that as I'm sitting there thinking to myself, like,
Good
what are
question.
these? So because I feel like I might be pushing back a little bit. And I think that if I'm sitting here watching this, these are my questions that I would have as a
Yeah.
viewer. What do you think the UFO sightings are? Like, do you think they're aircrafts with aliens in them? Are they rovers? Are they people in there? Or what? Wouldn't know what you would call them.
I think they're all of the above. They're not one thing. It sure seems like there's vehicles with occupants in them. There's probably unmanned vehicles. And like I said, I think 90% are misidentifications of, aircraft, balloons, things like that.
Do
So it's a
you?
mix.
It's a mix
It's a
of
mix.
different things.
Yeah.
And when
And
somebody
when
reports it, do you
you
guys also
also
investigate who's reporting it, or you just take the notes from there?
We do investigate. About 2 years ago, we started building an investigative team ourselves. We didn't have that before. We would converse with witnesses, of course, ourselves, but now we have some dedicated, trained investigators that will go out, talk to the witness, interview them, do things like cross-reference the sighting against ADSB or some of the air traffic control historical records that are out there, talk to law enforcement. There's so many reports that come in that we can't go after them all. We just don't have the resources. So we tend to go after the really impressive ones.
Have you seen The Age of Disclosure by Dan
Yes.
Farah? And what do you think of that?
Thought it was really well done. I thought they did a great job. Yeah, I've met some of the people in that. In Holiday, for instance, these are serious professional people who are coming out and saying, "Look, this is real." It's not just us at the National UFO Reporting Center that are trying to tell people that there's some kind of non-human intelligence piloting craft around our planet. We've got the government, top government, Navy admirals, Top Gun pilots, all kinds of physicists coming out now and saying the same thing. But there is still a huge contingent that's resisting.
Why do you think there's that resistance?
Well, I don't know for sure, but there's theories that there's been this alien craft retrieval program for all these years, which I think is still somewhat unproven. One of the biggest theories is that there's this secret cabal within the deep, dark basement of the Pentagon or the military industrial complex that still exists that is basically trying to protect their turf and doesn't want any of this to come out. And the reasons for that are, people theorize on what the reasons are, but some people think that they're just worried that they've been basically breaking the law all these years by keeping these things under wraps, and they would be in some hot water if it was to all come out. there's national security concerns. There's, still some of this Cold War mentality that's out there that we don't want our adversaries to know what we're doing. So all kinds of theories, but until somebody really breaks it wide open, I think it's still at the theory stage.
Why do you think the government is not being forthcoming? If that's the right
Well,
word, or why do you think? I mean, I don't know if that's the right question to ask. Why do you think we're having? Because I keep getting to this point of like, why are we in this area where some people feel really comfortable to come tell us, and then other people do not?
well, I think it's what I described in my previous answer is one of the main reasons. Their fear of of having broken the law by keeping these things secret, fear of revealing secrets to government adversaries, things like that. But again, these are just theories. There are also people in the government that are working hard to try and get to the bottom of this and release the information. I think that the group at Arrow now is really doing a solid. They have a lot of integrity in what they're doing and trying to release many government documents as they possibly can. And we've got, President Trump came out and basically gave the edict to release the UFO files, and there is actual real activity going on that front right now. Now, what gets produced? Hopefully, we're going to see something within the next few months, and we can make a judgment call at that point on whether we think, it's still a big cover up or whether they're really trying to let people know what's going on. But you've also got Congress people. You've got Tim Burchett and Representative Luna and some others that are out there really trying to push for UFO transparency, which is great. And then you've got a lot of private groups out there like the Daniel Sheehan's New Paradigm Institute is basically a large that's totally dedicated to trying to get the government to release what they know. So we'll see. You know, it's
What
certainly come a long way in the last 10 years from where it was before that. When the New York Times article came out in 2013, it kind of talked about some of the government programs going out at Skinwalker Ranch. That's when I think the whole subject took on a much more legitimate aspect to it in the eyes of basically everybody. And ever since then, it's really becoming more accepted, and it's not so much a fringe lunatic kind of subject that
idea?
people.
Why do you think the aliens want to come here? That's a question I always have. Like, why come here? Like, like I have no interest in
know,
going. I'm happy to go study like outside of the universe, but like going to the moon.
there's a lot of theories. The bottom line, nobody knows, right? Nobody knows why we're coming here. There are theories that they've always been here. There's theories that they discovered us. And one of the theories that really, I think, stands out is that they're interested in our nuclear missile program because UFOs have consistently been seen around nuclear missile tests and nuclear missile sites. We developed the first atom bomb, so I think some of the messages that they've given to some of the abductees and things, they do promote a message of trying to preserve the environment and take care of the planet. And I think they're somewhat genuinely interested in us not destroying this place. It is a
I
pretty
mean,
special place.
yeah. The question is, do they want to put us in their soup, or do they want to come and learn from us? And
I
I
think
think they get it.
if we're going to be soup, we probably would have been soup already.
Yeah.
I don't know if they're, I mean, other analogies people use are, look
Yeah.
at the way we go out and study the gorillas, they could just be in us as a study. But it's a very, very strange phenomenon because these craft and these beings do things that we can't even imagine how it's possible. They break all the laws of physics that they just do.
Yeah.
And they also have, there's this aspect of, advanced consciousness to them that generally when people communicate with aliens through the abduction experience, it's all telepathic. So all the information is there. There's no speaking. There's no, audible waves of air traveling to somebody's eardrums. It's all telepathic.
Well, they have to
So
learn to talk to
whole
us, right?
consciousness aspect to the phenomenon as well.
Well, they'll have to learn how to talk to us. We'll have to learn how to talk to them if
Mhm.
they're here. But the abductees, you say it's telepathic. Like, are they similar in what they're looking for? Like the aliens?
Well, there's a common story throughout the abduction phenomenon of people being taken out of their rooms at night, taking up into the ships, having various procedures performed on them, and returned with no memory of what's going on. So that's a very consistent, common story. But then there's all kinds of other phenomenon that go on. So again, it's hard to know what they really want or what their true agenda is. One thing is for sure is they're very good at keeping that from us. In other words, they've been able to keep their true motives a secret for
Yeah.
for as long as they've been around. We still just don't really know. Maybe some people know, but I don't know. The general public doesn't know. I don't think the government knows either.
And as someone who's worked with this organization, how do your friends and family perceive what you're doing?
Again, is a mixed bag. Uh, some look at it with a little side eye, and some are like, "Yeah, that's really interesting. What's going on?" It's interesting, the whole UFO phenomenon. There's a certain type of person that really gets sucked into it and really finds it fascinating. And then there's, I think, the most people, it's kind of off there on the sides of their what they think about every day. It's certainly not the center of their universe. Some people have an open, some people have made up their mind that it's just nonsense.
I think at a time when we're having a very tough time talking to each other on the planet, I think that there's something that we can all agree on that we can all look to and talk about because it's something I don't think it causes us like I think it gives us some space to talk about
Yeah.
stuff in a way that we can listen to each other. Because I don't think when it comes to politics right now, no one's listening to each other. And with the aliens and with the UFOs, I think it's a topic that we can listen to and we can listen to different people and perspectives and get different ideas. But
Mhm.
as we start to wrap up, is there anything that I should have asked you that I didn't ask you?
I don't know so much if there's anything you should have asked me. I guess I do want to make a statement out to your viewers to, I think most people, if you go around and ask your friends and family, have you ever seen something that you can't explain in the sky? You're almost invariably bound to find someone in your circle of acquaintance that has seen something. And again, we estimate that maybe 5% of these sightings actually do get reported. So the vast majority don't. So I always like to try and encourage people if you've seen something yourself or you know somebody who has, please come to our website and report it because we're trying to build this database. And the more stories we can collect, the more of a case we can make, and the more understanding we can get of the subject. We're going to be getting involved with, you know, throwing AI at our database to try and find out trends and see if we can discover some more hidden nuggets of wisdom in all these reports we've collected. And the more data we can collect, the better. And the more of a case I think we make to the public and everyone that this is a real thing and it really deserves our attention and our best
How
science efforts to figure out what it is.
how does AI help you guys? Because we don't know what we're looking for and it's unidentified. That's in the title. And AI is only as good as its coder. And if the coder doesn't know what it's looking for, how do we know or how do you guys
Well,
use that?
AI is getting really good at reading and understanding text. And that's what we have. We have reams and reams and reams of text. So if we want to go and find out, say, tell me how many of my reports did the object make a sudden right angle turn with no, curvature, something that's just not possible. We could throw AI at it and it could run through the whole database and tell us those answers. Whereas for us to go through 150,000 reports and read them all manually and try and pull that out, it's a lot more difficult. Now, we've collected a lot of that attribute data ourselves. When people fill out the forms on our website to report a UFO, there are a lot of questions like, was there incident acceleration? And, some interesting aspects of UFO sightings that you hear over and over and over again that aren't widely known is that when people see these craft, what's very commonly reported is they also say, and then the strangest thing happens, like all the sounds stopped. They'll be out in their yards, and they'll be having a normal barbecue or something, and the crickets are chirping and the dogs are barking. When the UFO comes by, it goes dead silent. And
Wow.
again, it this is reported over and over and over again. And people will describe it as not even a normal silence. It's like a heavy silence, almost like there's a force or a force field or something going on. So
Yeah.
weird stuff like that. And you know, we can go through our database with AI and start pulling out more cases of these strange phenomena that maybe repeat over and over and over that we just didn't catch, you know, as the reports came in. So stuff like that.
Yeah. Wow. That's fascinating.
It's really cool.
Yes, no, it's incredibly cool. Christian Stepien, the organization is you're the Chief Technology Officer of the National UFO Reporting Center. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Yeah,
Thank you so much for listening out there. As always, let me know what you think. Put your thoughts in the comments. And until next time, everyone, be safe.